Hello there. So, at the end of all this staying indoors, will Britain's economy soar above the other nations, or will it sink lower than Prince Philip's testing? Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the rear by giving this video a big fat like. And I'm always uploading new content, so please do check my YouTube channel daily. Now people, I do hope you, your families and your friends are all keeping well. And please do exactly as advised by the government. Wash your hands, keep your distance and save both yourself and the NHS as well as those around you. But I now have to depress you all by mentioning the name of Gordon Brown. Apologies for that, but wait for it. He's calling for a direct form of global governance to deal with the current problems, based on a combined G20 and UN Security Council response. Yes, that's right. The Guardian reports that the former Labour Prime Minister, who was at the centre of the international efforts to tackle the impact of the near meltdown of the banks in 2008, said there was a need for a task force involving world leaders, health experts and the heads of the international organisations that would have executive powers to coordinate the response. Executive powers over the UK. Good job Labour didn't win that election, isn't it? They'd be lapping this one up, ready with the pen and asking, where do we sign? And the report quotes Brown as saying, this is not something that can be dealt with in one country. There has to be a coordinated global response. All I can see emerging from that would be another lengthy, bureaucratic and potentially autocratic gravy train snaking round the world. Good old Gordon can always be relied upon for a laugh, can't he? Now, when we've beaten this thing, which we will, the UK will be looking at a greatly depleted economy. And looking at some of the mainstream media, you would assume all was doom and gloom at the moment. But while the days ahead might look gloomy, especially for those who've lost loved ones, there are actually many positives we can take away from this event. And the first is that, so far, fingers crossed, the NHS has not yet buckled under the strain. Yes, there have been problems, but as far as I can tell, across the board the staff have risen to the task and overcome those problems. So far, that is. And how about those volunteers? 2 days ago, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson called for a volunteer army of 250,000 to help the 1.5 million people who are being asked to shield themselves in their homes. And over 500,000 people have already come forward to volunteer. The country was short of ventilators, and the UK tech sector immediately steps forward with solutions within the week. Bear in mind that up until the very, very recent past, that whole procedure would have been outsourced to a company in the Far East. How quickly times change. The armed forces have, as ever, quietly stepped in with all sorts of assistance, including helping to put together the XL temporary wards in London, with more to follow in other major cities. The food and essentials industries have remained resilient, despite the hoarders and profiteers. And in the main, the population understands what needs to be done and is quietly going about the task. Although it does have to be said that there are a few idiots out there who should know better, or who should be locked up, not for their own safety so much as that of the rest of us. And one lesson that should be obvious to all is that across the globe, every nation state is discovering that the buck stops with them. Now, I may be wrong, But as far as I can see, despite what Gordon Brown claims, all the supranational and international bodies have been just about irrelevant, mere talking shops following events. For example, according to reports, the United Nations is yet to formally discuss this global event in either the UN Security Council or the UN General Assembly, with many pointing the finger of blame for this lack in the scheduling at this month's chair of the UN Security Council, China, with Republic World reporting that Beijing does not plan to discuss the situation in the Security Council during its presidency this month. How does that work in a global response? And many may not know this, but the UK had to submit the economic rescue package put together by Rishi Sunak and his team for European Union state aid rules scrutiny to get approval to use it. That approval was given yesterday. How much time, money and effort was wasted on all of that? Anyway, when the dust has settled, despite the many issues we've faced, I think we'll be able to look back with some satisfaction at what we did achieve as a country in so short a time. But the massively reduced amount of economic activity across the board will take its toll on both private and public finances. There's no way round that. In fact, depending on how long this takes, we may well see an emergency budget once the fog begins to clear. Or at the very least, the autumn budget statement is going to be extremely interesting. Treasury and Bank of England staff will of course already be looking ahead at these sorts of plans. And while all this goes on, Parliament has shut down a week early for Easter. Both the House of Commons and the House of Lords have adjourned until the 21st of April. And the talk is that this could well get extended. This will already take a week out of the parliamentary programme with potentially more days lost to come. Something that Brexiteers should be aware of, as it reduces the time available to get the required post-Brexit implementation period legislation in place before the 31st of December 2020. Just saying, 'cause you know exactly where the pro-EU mob would like to see that one lead, don't you? Anyway, when we do reach the end of this crisis, I would surmise that some businesses and individuals will sadly have gone to the financial wall, and many businesses will be shadows of their former selves, despite all the money being poured into them by the Chancellor. And that's when the people of the UK will be prodded into leaving their enforced hibernation and encouraged to surge back onto the economic treadmill. The people will be told that we got through this together, and now is the time to shake off the dust and get to work together, rebuilding the economy and country. But what next? What is Rishi Sunak going to say? That another age of austerity to pay off the new national debt is once again forced by circumstance upon us? That all those extra NHS facilities we just put in will be dismantled and the extra workers sent home? Well, no, I reckon he'll have to keep spending to get employers to hire and to give consumers the confidence to get buying again. And all the while the national debt and the annual deficit will continue to inexorably rise. For example, there will be questions like, how do we get all those self-employed people back on the active list again? How do we give the property market the immediate kickstart it needs? How do we get our education system back on track? And there would surely need to be a wholesale reassessment of all the massive infrastructure projects the Tories promised. Or is this actually an opportunity where our rebuilding as a nation starts? But one thing is, will any elected government ever again be able to say, we can't afford to do this, that or the other? Because people may well be tempted just to say, keep shaking that magic money tree you've got hidden away in the garden of number 11 Downing Street. You found the money before, find it for this now, they'll say. But overall, people do need to have something to eat and somewhere to live, so I'm sure an economy that supports that will recover quite quickly. However, we have to bear in mind that people have been forced to hide away indoors, and this has inevitably given them time to think. Maybe they've re-evaluated their lives and priorities as a result. Maybe they've even re-evaluated their contract with the state. Who knows? But I doubt that the collective that emerges from their homes after this has ended will be the same collective that entered those houses in the last few days. A change in the national psyche, if you will, with a different view of the world, what they want from their existence, and importantly, what they want in terms of work-life balance. And that might be the biggest challenge of all. Which may be one reason why the US President Donald Trump is so keen to get the US economy up and running and back to normal as quickly as possible. I gather he wants it all done and dusted by Easter. This experience will have affected many people in many different ways, so to say that the upcoming few months will be interesting is obviously an understatement. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. But mostly, please wash your hands and keep your distance. And as the comedian Dave Allen always used to say, may your God go with you. So, do you think the UK is rising to the challenge? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.